Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you this evening. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel. You can also follow along links that we post on our Facebook page, our Twitter, and if you don't catch the live version, then you can always access the recording on our YouTube channel, or you can get the audio anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, any decent podcast has Jays from the Couch nowadays. And, excuse me, if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's our main podcast, Jays from the Couch, that runs Sunday evening at 7 p.m., as well on Tuesday at 7 p.m. There's the Unfeck Circle starring Steve Feck. And Steve is a lot of fun. He's very entertaining. He knows a lot of different things, and he'll really make you think about things. You might not always agree with him. Lord knows I don't, but he's very worth a watch and a listen. So if you haven't been tuning in, make sure you do that. All right. Happy Thursday evening, everybody. How's it going? Hope everybody's doing well. So, yeah, can you believe that opening day is just 2 weeks from today? How time flies. It doesn't seem like it's that close for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, it's been an interesting spring training. The Jays overall, even though we know that spring training results don't count for anything, it counts come April 1st. When the Jays start to matter. But overall, the team's been doing pretty well. There have been some interesting performances and all of that. So lots of things to keep an eye on. Interestingly, the Jays today announced 25 players that had been invited to spring training. A few of them roster, a lot of them non-roster invitees were either optioned or assigned to their minor league camp. Now, they can still participate in spring training games with Major League Camp, but basically the Jays are saying that as of now, unless something drastic changes, you're not breaking camp with the Major League team. There were really no surprises on that list. One name noteworthy that caught a lot of attention, has caught a lot of attention this spring, who was pitched in 2 games, is Alek Manoah, who's pitched 5 innings of scoreless ball with 11 strikeouts. And I know at least some people that I follow on social media think that he should have started the season with the Toronto Blue Jays. Personally, I think as much as I am excited about this young prospect, I really think that's putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. I mean, he was drafted in 2019. His pro career started later that year, and he has pitched in 6 games with the Vancouver Canadians, who at the time were the lowest A-ball affiliate that the Jays had. And that's been reorganized, and they're now the high A-ball, and Dunedin is the low A-ball. But yeah. So I just really think that it's too soon to be promoting him as good as he looked and as tempting as it is to say, okay, here you go, now you're a major leaguer. I really think you need to get him a little bit more time in the minors, get him some more seasoning and development. And remember, up until now, this is someone who's had 2 very good pitches, his fastball and his slider, and he's still kind of working on getting a 3rd pitch. I mean, he has another pitch. He has a changeup, but up until now, his changeup hasn't really been, it hasn't been great, not like the other 2 pitches. So if he's going to realize his ceiling, which is as a front of the rotation starter, then it benefits him and the organization in the long run to go down to the minor leagues and work on that pitch much. And I mean, if he continues to dominate, I'm thinking he starts the year at AAA. He continues to dominate, and we'll be seeing him before too long. So not to worry. Lots of interesting things. Another high prospect who was drafted last year, Austin Martin. We had a bit of a look at him. He's gotten into some games, mostly as a later inning replacement once the regulars have been taken out, which, as we know, that's what happens in spring training. He got his first hit a couple of days ago, so he only has the one spring training hit. No surprise, he'll go to the minor leagues, and I'm pretty sure he'll hit. I mean, that's one of his biggest tools, and why he was drafted high and signed. Well, one thing that I'm really impressed with is all the walks he's taken. He's had, I believe, 13 plate appearances with 5 walks. That is absolutely an insane walk ratio. I really appreciate plate discipline, having the maturity to, recognize you look at the pitch, you recognize that it's not a strike, and you don't try to swing at it. That has a level of maturity as a ball player, like Kevin Biggio. If us fans of the Blue Jays, we've been watching our team over the last how many years, and how many teams have we seen with guys that just, they may be talented and they may be really good in a lot of ways, but darn, if these guys don't strike out way too much. And this is one way I think Austin Martin, when he gets to the Blue Jays, whenever that is, he is really going to complement the team in that way. So something to watch, something to keep an eye on. Some other news just before I get to the heart of tonight's order. Charlie Montoyo, manager, he was on his final season with the Jays in 2021, at least contractually, and the Blue Jays announced that they exercised their option on him for the 2022 season. So there's mixed reviews on Charlie. I know there are some people, I don't think I've ever heard a bad word about him as a human being. I think he's a terrific guy. There are people who don't like him as a manager. They don't like his strategy. Myself, I do. I think he's done quite well with this young team. He got them to the playoffs last year, just 1 year after an official rebuild began, and they were 67 and 95. I think he really maximizes what he can get out of this talent, and I'm glad that he's going to be around for at least another couple of years, and hopefully see it through and see how far they can go. Excuse me a moment. Okay, and other news, some unfortunate injury news, as we've probably all heard about. So Nate Pearson's been sidelined for a little while. He had a strained groin. He was working his way back from that. And then unfortunately, a few days ago, it was announced that he re-aggravated the strain. So they're not really sure how long it's going to be before he's really ready to be back. I think we can all pretty much assume that he's not going to be on the opening day roster at this point. It's just a question of when will he be healthy and ready to come back and contribute. So hope for the best there. And then, unfortunately, Thomas Hatch, he started a game yesterday, and he had to be taken out during the game, and he also seems to be dealing with some injury, forearm. He was seen rubbing his elbow, so that's usually not a good thing, and apparently he's having an MRI. So with the Jays not playing today, look for some news tomorrow, and fingers crossed that it's not a worst case scenario, but unfortunate for the team, to be sure. All right, now moving on to the heart of tonight's lineup. So Going around and looking at some past episodes, one thing that I haven't yet talked about is the Blue Jays bullpen and the way that it looks going into the 2021 season. And I had a look at the guys that are likely to be in the pen, and you might be looking at a 9-man bullpen if you've got a 26-man roster. So you've got 5 starting pitchers. If you go with a 9-man bullpen, then you're up to 14. So you've got 12 position players. I mean, I think we pretty much know who the regulars are. You've got your 4 outfielders. You've got your 5 infielders, including both Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Rowdy Tellez. So then you're up to 9. 2 catchers, whoever they may be, still TBD a little bit there. And then you've got room for 1 other bench player, whether that ends up being Joe Panic or whatever. So assuming a 9-man bullpen, so the Jays have assembled a pretty interesting group of guys that look like they're going to be down there barring injury, knock on wood. So number one of their free agent signings this offseason was Kirby Gates. So Kirby Gates is 33 years old. Unfortunately, he's coming off an injury-plagued season in 2020. He had the bone chips in his elbow and had to have surgery before that. I mean, basically for him, 2020 was a write-off, as it was for a lot of people, but maybe for some different reasons. Before that, however, Yates, a little later in his MLB career, because he's a veteran, he had really turned himself into an elite closer the 2 years prior to 2020. So in 2018, he had a 2.14 ERA. In 2019, he was even better. He had a 1.19 ERA, and he was an all-star. So he most definitely is the guy, assuming that he has rebounded from this injury and that he can pitch well and all of that. I don't know, and I don't want to set off the alarm bells or anything like that, but Yates so far this spring has only gotten into 1 game. He didn't give up any runs. I mean, as we know, spring training results you take them with a grain of salt, but he didn't give up any runs, allowed a couple of base runners. They didn't score. I mean, it doesn't mean anything as long as he's getting into shape, but we'll see. Hopefully he'll get into another game or 2 coming soon. Hopefully there isn't cause for concern regarding his health there. But as I say, there's no question that if he's healthy and returns to form, he is the guy out of the bullpen in a safe situation. Well, what happens if there's an issue? If he needs some time on the IL, if he just isn't effective, we don't really know yet. Well, the Jays have a lot of other options down there, and I think this is really potentially a strength for them in 2021 is their bullpen. So next man up, Jordan Romano. Romano, he's actually not that young. He's 27 years old. He's been in the major leagues for parts of a couple of seasons with the Jays. Made his MLB debut in 2019, and although he impressed people with a lot of strikeouts, he had some injuries, missed some time, and then even when he came back later in the season, but it didn't really look like he was fully healthy. 2020 was a different story. He pitched very well. He got into 15 games in the shortened 60-game season with a 1.23 ERA and 21 strikeouts in 14 and 2/3 inning pitched. So in looking at these guys and looking at some of their numbers, part of what jumped out at me was the strikeouts per 9 innings. And anytime you have a pitcher with double-digit strikeouts in 9 innings, these are guys that can get major league hitters out. So in 2020, Romano's strikeouts per 9 innings was 12.9. So he really looked good last year. And then unfortunately, he missed some time with some injury, and he had some numbness in a finger and went on the injured list, and unfortunately that for 2020. He's back. He appears to be healthy now, and so I mean, a lot of people, I think, were kind of wanting to give him the closer's job before Kirby Gates was signed. But personally, and I'll get back to this a little later, I see no harm in having the veteran around to add some value there and maybe help out the guys with a little bit less MLB experience. So who else have we got? Rafael De Lis. He was signed a year ago to a 2-year deal. So this is second year of the 2-year deal. He's 33 years old. And he also pitched very well last year. He was, I think he was a little shaky maybe the first 1 or 2 times out, and then they kept running him out there, and he settled down. So he finished last year with an ERA of 1.5 in 24 games. And his strikeouts per 9 were also very good. It was 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings last season. And he's done all right in spring training. He's gotten into a few games with a 3.38 ERA. So there's no question. Again, if De Lis is healthy, he's definitely part of the mix there. And so excuse me. Okay, so from the left side of the plate, there is Ryan Burucky. So fans of the Jays certainly know who Burucky is. He's 26 years old. He made his MLB debut with the Jays in 2018, and he was used exclusively as a starting pitcher in 2018. Got into 17 games, pitched pretty well. He had a 3.87 ERA, which is certainly not bad for a rookie starting pitcher on a team which, let's face it, the 2018 Jays really didn't go anywhere. So I remember they kept running him out there, and he couldn't buy a break. I mean, he did so well most of the time in 2018 and just couldn't get any run support, and it took forever for him to get his first major league win. But we saw him, and it looked like somebody good for the future. Unfortunately, 2019 was a different story for Burucky. He was injured. He only pitched in a couple of games, and when he did pitch, he really didn't do well. So he ended up missing the majority of the 2019 season. 2020, he came back, and since coming back, the Jays have only used him as a relief pitcher. And even shortly after last season ended, they addressed some roles going forward for some of their young pitchers. And we see this one and this one and this one as a starter. Burucky, they said right off the bat, we see him as a relief pitcher going forward. So I don't know if that has to do with his injury histories and wanting to try to, for his sake and for the team, wanting to try to keep him healthy. Maybe they just want to use him out of relief, out of the bullpen. And that's how he was used in 2020. He was part of a really good bullpen for the Jays in 2020. He did very well. His strikeouts per 9, again, 11.3. So another double digits there. And he's pitched in the spring, has looked good at 2.25 ERA in 4 games. So we know he's on the team, again, barring injury, and good option to have from the left-hand side. And he can go, as long as you don't overuse him, he can go at least maybe 2-3 innings. He's got the really good changeup. That's his best pitch there. Another option out of the bullpen is a free agent signing this past offseason, Tyler Chatwood. So he's looked quite good this spring training. The Jays signed him to a 1-year, $3 million contract. He's 31 years old. He's a veteran, and he's kind of had an up and down career. A couple of his last years were only so, and you looked at, if you heard the signing and you do what I do right after, it's like, okay, I haven't heard of him, and you look at his stats and they were like, it didn't really jump out as being phenomenal. But I mean, he's a bounce back candidate, and this spring actually he's looked very sharp. So he's gotten into 5 games, 6 innings pitched, hasn't allowed a run, and the number that stood out for me when looking at his spring stats is his WHIP 0.17. Not that I'm expecting it to be that good during the season, obviously. They say that pitchers have the edge over hitters in spring training, and again, it's spring training, and you take the results for what they are, but at least it's a good thing when guys aren't struggling. There's no guarantee that amazing success will carry over to the regular season, but at least it's better than looking at that and going, yeah, well, he's really struggling, but hopefully it'll be better in the regular season. At least all we have to hope for is that he does as well as this or anything close to that. So next up, another rather interesting signing, David Phelps. Hello, old friend. The Jays brought him back as a free agent this offseason on a 1-year deal at $1,750,000 for the year. David Phelps is 34 years old. You may remember that this is his second stint with the Blue Jays. He was around in 2019, part of 2019. They signed him in the offseason before that season started, knowing that he was coming off Tommy John surgery, and he wouldn't be ready to pitch until I believe he started for the Jays sometime in May, and he did pitch quite well, so well that they were able to trade him away at the trade deadline to the Chicago Cubs for Thomas Hatch. Looks like the Jays won that trade. They've got Thomas Hatch, who, knock on wood, when he's healthy, it looks like a pretty good prospect pitcher there, and now we've got David Phelps back. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag for Phelps. He did well with the Jays and with the Cubs in 2019. He started the 2020 season with the Milwaukee Brewers, pitched well for them, and then he got traded to the Phillies, and yeah, I really don't know what the heck happened when he was with the Phillies, but let's just say the wheels fell off, that the numbers weren't pretty, and when you look at how he did for them, it's not surprising that he didn't end up going back to them. So he's a free agent. Jays brought him back, and hopefully he can rebound to his pre-Phillies success, because he was pretty good for a while there. And another possibility for the bullpen, if he's healthy, and this is rather interesting, Julian Merriweather. So at the end of last season, the Jays said that they were looking at him as a starting pitcher. As recently as a couple of days ago, per Arden Zwelling on Twitter, they were actually looking at using him in a similar role to what they did last year. So not as a traditional starter, possibly as an opener, possibly as leverage relief, pitching between, say, 20 and 40 pitches per outing, depending on how it goes. So I don't know if it's his injury history that are scaring them away from maybe a traditional starter's role, and it's too bad, because he has some really good stuff, and he could be a real weapon. But I mean, he can be a real weapon out of the bullpen. He's been sidelined with a stiff back, I believe, and I tried to find some spring training stats on him, and I couldn't. I don't think he's gotten into a game yet, I don't believe. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he starts the season with the Jays, or if they need to put him on the injured list. If they have to put him on the injured list, that's unfortunate. But anyway, okay, so out of this 9-man bullpen, we've got Yates, we've got Romano, De Lis, Burucky, Chatwood, and David Phelps. And then you've got Merriweather if he's healthy. So that's a big question mark. So then you want to fill out the final 2 spots, and there's 3 candidates. And I mean, as much as you want Merriweather to be healthy, if he ends up on the IL, then that solves the short-term problem as far as what to do. You've got 3 guys for 2 spots, basically. So AJ Cole, the Jays, they had him last year. He pitched pretty well for the most part. They ended up non-tendering him in the offseason, which surprised me a bit. And then they re-signed him to a minor league deal. And so he's back with the team as a non-roster invitee. Another old friend and an older friend, so to speak, Francisco Liriano, left-handed pitcher, 37 years old, so he's a veteran. He was with the Jays for part of 2016 and 2017. They traded for him in 2016 to help with their playoff run, and then they traded him away in 2017 and got Teoscar Hernandez, so thank you very much. But they brought him back as a free agent on a minor league deal. Now, he has an opt-out if he doesn't make the major league team. Liriano, he hasn't allowed a run yet this spring. If he's looking to make the team, which obviously he is, so his spring matters. 5.1 innings. Hasn't allowed a run, as I said, but he hasn't been completely sharp yet. He's got 4 strikeouts, but he's also walked 3 guys and given up a couple of hits. He's pitched around that and not allowed any runs, and that's the thing that matters the most. But I mean, he hasn't been 100% sharp. And then lastly, the guy that for some reason not a lot of people seem to be talking about is Tim Meza. So Tim also used to play for the Jays, left-handed pitcher. He unfortunately had Tommy John surgery back in 2019, so he missed all of the 2020 season. But now he's back looking to make the team, and he's actually looked very sharp. Also hasn't given up a run, ERA of 0. Pitched in 3 games, 3 innings, so one inning per outing, so to speak. Hasn't allowed a hit, only 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. The fortunate thing for the Jays in terms of their organizational depth, but the unfortunate thing for Meza is that he has 2 minor league options. So if they want to keep all 3 of them, and assuming there's only 2 spots, what they could do is option Meza and keep Cole and Liriano. It's something I see. I feel like I see it almost every season. In spring training, you've got say 2 players competing for 1 roster spot, and one of them clearly outperforms the other one, but the better player has minor league options, and the player not doing as well is out of options or has this opt-out or whatever. And so often, and I'm sure the Jays aren't the organization, but so often they favor the organizational depth and wanting to keep both players, and they keep the guy that isn't doing as well. And to me, that just drives me crazy. I understand it, but I really like it when my team, the Toronto Blue Jays, keeps the better players and actually tries to win and does the best they can to try to win. So I'm hoping that one way or another, Meza will actually make the team. I think he can really contribute. And on that note, we're almost out of time. So that brings me to 3 Blue Jay colored glasses. So, sticking still with the theme of the bullpen and who is going to do what, and I think, as I think a number of Blue Jay fans do, that they really potentially, have something special in Jordan Romano. I think he is a very dominant closer in waiting. Now, I'm not upset that they went out and got Kirby Gates. As I said, it doesn't hurt to have that veteran stopper at the end of the bullpen. If he's healthy and doing what he can when he's at his best, then that's great. It's almost like the glory days of 1992 when the Jays had Tom Henke as the closer and Dwayne Ward as the setup man. And if you were losing to the Jays after 7 innings, good luck. You weren't going to get by the two of them. But anyway, so the way I see the Kirby Gates situation is I'm hoping he's going to be the pitcher that he has been for the Jays in the past couple of years, 2018 and 2019 in particular. I actually see the biggest value to the Toronto Blue Jays from Kirby Gates in being a mentor to Jordan Romano. Now, whether that's directly, whether Gates takes Romano under his wing and helps kind of finish his development to the point where this is this dominant stopper that the Jays are going to have for the next few years that helps them get to the next level. Hopefully that'll happen directly. And even if it happens indirectly by observation, by watching things that he does, I think there's going to be a huge benefit that way. And I think whenever Gates is done with the Blue Jays, I think the baton will be passed to Romano, and I think he's going to be something special for our Jays. And on that note, we're pretty much out of time for this evening, so thank you so much for joining me. Let's go Blue Jays, and spring training resumes tomorrow.